Hi, it's Lisa. I have a lot of photos and I have 2 full pages of journaling, all on one topic, and I've decided I want to put those into a mini album. So in this video, the first of a series, I'm going to share with you why I chose the mini album and where I've had success with those, and how I'm going to organize all of this material so that I can work on this over several days, maybe even several weeks, and still get other things done in my craft space. We'll end the video with how I'm preparing these chipboard pages to be used for a lot of mixed media that will be part of the design of the album. So why a chipboard album for this project? I don't do a lot of mini albums. I've had success with them in the past where I've gifted them to people. I did an album for each of my parents. My mother's was more like this. It was chipboard. It was really decorative. I used a lot of beautiful papers and embellishments and photos from her life, and she kept it displayed on a table in her living room. My dad, I did the traditional 8x8 mini album for him. So it was a scrapbook album. It was just a smaller size. And I kind of covered his whole life, and he loved it. He kept it by his chair so he could look at it whenever he wanted to. And now, of course, I have both of those albums. So while I have a lot of pictures of my parents and I have them in my scrapbook albums, and I have some other things, I did another album for them related to their travels, those 2 small albums are just a nice way for me to kind of take a tour through their life whenever I want to. So mini albums can be good for a lot of purposes. I've just tended towards the traditional scrapbook albums because I like the 12x12 format, and I like keeping everything in that structure of having them all in albums. It's easy to go back and find things, and I feel like if I ever needed to move, I'd have them all in one place. They're easy to have them in my living room. I don't have to worry about dust because they're in page protectors. So there's a lot of reasons to do traditional scrapbooking, but for a mini album, sometimes if you have a singular topic, they can be good for that too. This will be my first mini album for myself in this style. I did one time on just motivational things and just had some quotes and stuff in there and some pretty decorative things, and I kept it out for a while, and I'm not even sure what's happened to it now. This one, though, I've got a lot of photos, and where these came from, this was a gardening project from this past year, from 2021. I had wanted for a long time to improve my yard and the things around my house. My husband and I are a bit like foodies who don't cook but like to go to restaurants and eat all kinds of cool food. We like to go tour gardens and see all the beautiful things and think about all the stuff we might do at our house, but we don't really ever get around to doing it. My big problem is when it gets hot in the summer here and the mosquitoes come out and the weeds come out, I lose interest. This summer, though, part of it was that we had a mild summer. After June was hot, and then July and August were beautiful, and so all the stuff I planted did really well. And I still had to maintain it. I still had to weed and tend to it, but it wasn't nearly as onerous as it often is when you're managing a yard. The other motivation was I had inherited all of my mother's gardening things. Now, she was a great gardener. She didn't take to it until after she retired. But it was something she really threw herself into. She loved spending time out in her yard. Her mother had been a vegetable gardener, and she had a huge vegetable garden, and that was her passion. But I didn't quite inherit all that. I just inherited the love for it, but not necessarily the love of the work that goes into it. But this year I really got on board more. I watched took a Craftsy class. I do not remember the instructor, and I didn't buy the class. I'm not sure I can find it now. But it was a class on container gardening and how to position your containers on the outside of your house so you can see them from the inside, and that really resonated with me. I'm more of an indoor person at home, so if I could create a beautiful garden that I could enjoy from the inside of the house, that made more sense to me. So we pulled out some shrubs in the front of the house, and I transformed part of what was normal little landscaping into a pretty garden. I did some more stuff with the back, and I was really proud of it, obviously. So I took a lot of photos as the year went on. I've printed out many of those, and I want to contain them in something that kind of is one location for all of this information. Now the album that I have chosen, I have this in my stash. Almost everything I use these days is coming from my stash. This is a Bo Bunny album. I went and looked this morning and I could not find this exact album, but I found many other chipboard albums. Even Amazon has some cool chipboard albums that are pretty inexpensive. And this is one you could even make it yourself if you just took chipboard and cut it into graduating sizes and hole punched it on the ends. This one did not come with anything to bind the holes, so I'll have to get some those little round clip things to go into this when I get done with it. But what I'm going to do next is show you how I organize things, because I've done this with other mini albums. This could go on for several days, maybe even several weeks if I get busy on other projects. I've signed up for a card swap for Valentine's Day, so at some point I got to use my work area to create Valentine cards. I may not have this finished. So I need to be able to move this around and pick it up and work on it as I have time. And that's what I'm going to show you next. I did this, I know I did it with my dad's album, and it really helped organize things and work on it over time. So let's look at that next. This album is organized in graduating sizes. All of the pages are 6 inches in height. The first page is, I think, 8 1/4, and then the next 9, and they continue up in 3/4 inch increments as they get up to 12 inches. There's also a backer page that came with this, and I'm going to plan to use that in the album. I may use it in the back, or I may cut it down and use it somewhere else in the album, but for right now I'm planning to use that as well. Now, instead of trying to lay things out on this, what I've done is cut some paper, and I've cut 2 pieces of each size of this album. The reason for that is I'll be working on both sides, and it's really impossible to lay everything out and see it if I don't have some way of spreading them out so I can see what a spread is going to look like with 2 pages together. And I just took some scrap paper for this. So I've got pages 1 and 2, the top and the back of the top, that are the 8 1/4 inch by 6, and then the 9 inch by 6, pages 3 and 4, and so forth. So what I'll do is spread all of those out. I'm working on my cutting table that I use for quilting. I have it clear off. I'm going to spread all of these pages out, and then I'll start organizing the photos where I want them to go. And probably the first thing I'll do with these photos is just try to put them in some kind of order for how I think I'm going to want to display them, and then I can move the pictures around. And some of them I have multiple sizes, like this one I have a 5x7 and a 4x6, so I'll have to decide then between the sizes. But that's how I'll get started on the organization. The first step here is to sort the photos. Just kind of figure out the order that I'm planning to put them in. I had them sorted at one point, but then I got them all mixed up, so I'm kind of doing that again. Some of those small photos where I printed 2 on a 4x6, I'll need to cut those up. I've discarded one there where I had 2 of that yellow chair, and I want to tell the story of the yellow chair, but I had one photo I preferred over the others. So I kind of have an order to them. And I've also printed out my journaling, and I have like 2 full pages of journaling, so we're going to look at that as well. I'm going to spread out the papers. Now, if you were using background papers to cover your chipboard, or you're doing more traditional, like 8x8 mini album that went into paper sleeves, you could use the designer paper that you were going to lay them on, or the cardstock you were going to lay them on. You wouldn't have to use scrap paper. But it is important to number things, so you just kind of keep up with where everything is, because you're going to be moving it and pulling stuff out at different times. I ended up doing, when I work on the backgrounds of this, I'm going to be doing them in different order, not necessarily in the order that they come. So now I'm just deciding what photos are going to go on what pages. A mini album is a good opportunity with journaling if you have a lot of it, and I do here, to maybe do some pockets and things because you don't have those page protectors to work around. So you can do pockets, you can do flip over kind of cards, and I'll be doing some of that with this mini album to contain the journaling. You don't have to figure out how to get it out of the page protector. Okay, now once I get all the photos laid out, then I've cut the journaling. I just cut it into strips, so it would, like each paragraph or each section, what it went with, and then I'll put it with the appropriate photos so I'll know where it goes. Doing the journaling ahead like this really helps you figure out how much space you're going to need, and I find if I do the journaling ahead, I do more journaling. If I wait until I've put the photos and everything out and I only have a limited amount of space, then I tend to write up less journaling. All right, to contain everything, I'm going to take each of the 2-page spreads and put them in just a regular, ordinary page protector, like an 8.5 by 11 page protector from the office supply store. I had a bunch of these, and that's a good way to contain them. You could use your page protectors from your scrapbooking stash, just anything to contain them. And again, the pages are numbered, so I'll know which ones go where within the album. And I have one more step that I'm going to show in this video. To prepare the album, I am taking all of these chipboard pieces and I'm coating them with a layer of white gesso. I'm going to be doing a lot of different mixed media techniques, and this will be a good foundation for all of them. And gesso it's a little thicker than white paint. It has a little bit of a tooth to it, so it can really hold other layers, other mediums. And we'll see that in the next video when I show you some of the different backgrounds. So I hope you'll stay tuned for the next video, which will be coming out soon, as we continue with this mini album. And you'll get to see the whole thing coming together. I won't do every single page, but I'll do quite a few of them. So thank you for watching today, and I appreciate your subscriptions and a thumbs up if you like the video. Thanks so much.